Welcome to Tapping Vegas, brought to you by Better and Green. Today we're breaking down UFC 315, Valentina Shevchenko and Manon Fiorot versus Belal, Remember the Wall, Muhammad, and Jack Della Maddalena. Bobby, if you're looking at this card, you might think that, this isn't a very good card, but Big Pharma came in to save the day, and they have a message for you.
Introducing Prepolec, a breakthrough in getting back on track. Prepolec helps lift you out of the slump and into motion. Prepolec is not for everyone. Side effects may include drowsiness and nosebleeds. Do not operate heavy machinery until you know how Prepolec affects you. Talk to your doctor today about Prepolec.
And so we're going to get straight into that fight. We're going to talk about this Mr. Kyle Prepolec versus Benoit Saint Denis. These odds were like minus 1,000, then moved to minus 900. Now they're back to minus 1,050, so they're even higher than they were before. I'm looking at the money splits right here. Benoit Saint Denis, 85% of the money, 85% of the bet, 75% of the money. Everything's pouring in on him. And we were talking about this before the show. This is just such a funny fight. It's like Benoit Saint Denis was getting so hyped up by the UFC, and then 2 bad losses. Now they're like, let's give him a guy with less of a reach, that's older, that was in the UFC before and then wasn't good, so we kicked him out. Let's bring him back in. Let's bring him back in for old BSD. This just seems like such a setup. And so much of the time, the UFC is trying to get this quality matchmaking, which we've said they've actually been pretty decent with this year, of getting these guys that will have pretty good competition. I'm not seeing that here. I think this is a total setup. Prepolec, I actually do feel bad for him. I think Benoit Saint Denis gets a finish here, and I don't think this one's going to be particularly close. Finished in the first, maybe the second. I don't think this fight sees the third. What do you think, Bobby?
Yeah, this is just a very atrocious layup for Benoit Saint Denis, and if he can't finish Kyle Prepolec, then it really truly is over for the man, and he just needs to be cut. Prepolec doesn't really have a highlight reel. He actually has the definition of a low light reel. Like, the man is just there to be somebody else's highlight. He doesn't really have any of his own. He hasn't fought since June last year on the regional scene, and now he's coming in and instantly being thrust up against Benoit Saint Denis. And it's going to be ugly, and it's going to be absolutely disgusting, and there's a reason why the odds have it the way they do, right? There's a reason why Benoit Saint Denis a minus 1,050, and while Prepolec's a plus 675, don't be fooled. It's bait. It's a trap.
Yeah.
Benoit Saint Denis all the way. There's not a chance in hell that Kyle Prepolec wins this fight. It's the most one-sided fight on the entire card, and it's one of the most one-sided fights we've had in the entire UFC in a very long time.
This is reminiscent of Bo versus the Gardener.
Yes, pretty much.
Let's talk about this next fight. This lady was just the champion, I believe, within the past year. Now we're going to come in. You're getting her at almost plus 200 odds. Bobby, talk about this next fight, man.
Yeah, Alexa Grasso versus Natalia Silva. This one's very interesting to me. I'm trying to figure out why they have Grasso at so much of a dog. I understand that she lost to Shevchenko, but I mean, in the trilogy so far, she is 1-1-1 with Shevchenko. She lost to Shevchenko, she beat Shevchenko, and then they went to a draw. And, I mean, other than that, she's really only lost to the elite of the competition. There's not a huge difference in age between Natalia Silva and Alexa Grasso. Silva's 28, Grasso's 31. Grasso has a 1-inch reach and 1-inch height advantage, so nothing really crazy there. I'm just not understanding it. My biggest area of concern, and I'm trying not to do MMA math here, we talk about it on the show all the time, I'm just really not high off of a lot of Natalia Silva's highlights, being Teresa Bleda, who's not even in the UFC and never even had a Wikipedia page, and like Victoria Leonardo, right? Jasmine Judavicius was a very good win. Andrea Lee's been cut. Arujo was decent. Andrade is a decent win. Main thing I see with Natalia Silva is, yes, she does have amazing kicks. She has really good hip dexterity. She's able to just throw those kicks from a variety of ranges. They're very snappy. Opponents never see them coming. And then she really favors a spinning back kick. She loves that spinning back kick. That's how she knocked out Bleda. But that was just really good timing because Bleda ducked down for a takedown right as the foot connected with her chin and just put her out cold. Other than that, I just don't understand what the hell's going on. My biggest concern is if this is a striking match, I think Grasso takes it because Grasso is definitely a very good boxer for that division. That's not saying much in that women's division, but she really is decent at boxing. She definitely is creative with her strikes. She's able to control distance with her strikes and everything. Biggest thing that concerns me is if Natalia Silva decides to take this to the ground, decides to start grappling. I'm a little worried Grasso could get, what's the word I'm looking for here? Out muscled, basically, is what I'm trying to say. I'm a little worried Grasso could be out muscled. Seems like Silva would have the strength edge, and she probably walks around a little heavier than Grasso, probably cuts a little bit more weight. So I worry how that would affect Grasso. If it does go that route, that's my biggest issue. But other than that, it's a 3-round fight. I feel like Grasso has the cardio edge. She trains in Mexico City regularly. She's used to 5-round fights. She's had quite a few in her time in the UFC, so she knows what that feels like, knows how to pace herself, things like that. So this is just a 3-rounder, so no concerns there. Same for Silva. It's just a 3-rounder again. I'm just so confused. Maybe Grasso is toast. Maybe she is cooked, but I just can't pass up Grasso at plus 210, Silva at minus 258. I think that Grasso can take this in a 3-round fight if she's smart and she just picks away and just kind of pitter-patters Silva and just avoids the takedown and stuffs the takedown. She was really good at doing that against Carla Esparza. I know she had trouble against Valentina Shevchenko in the third fight, and that's primarily how Shevchenko won, was by controlling the grappling and just kind of holding down and just being a wet blanket on Grasso. But there's a world of difference between Valentina Shevchenko and Natalia Silva. So just because Shevchenko was able to do it, I'm not necessarily going to buy into Silva's able to do it. And I think the people see it like I do because 53% of bets are on Natalia Silva, 47% are on Grasso, so pretty split. Grasso's at plus 210, Silva's minus 258. I just like Grasso. I just think that's too tantalizing to pass up at this point. My biggest concern would be the grappling, but I'm just gonna say that she stuffs the takedown. She controls the distance like she did against Esparza for the success that she had, and she just picks apart and cruises to a decision. What do you think?
I really can't disagree. The things that, and this is one of those that, there's no numbers for this, but one of the things that makes me most concerned about this fight is that I think Grasso lost that last fight against Shevchenko because she quit. Like, Shevchenko, like people say this all the time, I'm gonna drag you into deep waters and you're gonna discover who you are, or like stuff like that. Grasso was put in a position where like Shevchenko's like, do something about it. You can't do anything. And it looked like she gave up on herself. And that was really disheartening to see. By the end of the third, I was like, just call this fight, bro. Because really after that, the last 2 rounds was just more the same, man. Grasso's just going out there, knows she's going to get taken down, gets taken down, gets controlled until the bell rings. Then I was looking at some of the stats that we show up on our screen. Grasso actually has a higher takedown average in her fights and a higher takedown accuracy. The only thing Silva beats her in takedown wise is takedown defense. Like you said, I don't really think Grasso's wanting to take this fight to the ground. If she can stand and bang, that's great. It's also not the public side. That's great too. We're getting a former champ at 2-1 odds coming off championship loss. I think that's great.
Last thing I want to add is I'm also optimistic if it does go to the ground that we can start to see Invicta era Grasso come out where she uses the momentum of that takedown attempt to maybe snatch up an armbar, snatch up a rear naked, that type of thing, and end up actually reversing it into a submission for herself. So that's another thing that gives me some optimism.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. We're both on the 2-1 dog there. Let's talk about this third fight. We've got Jose Aldo versus the guy that does all the MMA commentary. Bobby. Is that who I think that is?
Think that's John Anik brother?
Is that John Anik? Is that MMA Guru's nemesis, man? Who is this guy?
It's
Amin
actually
Zahabi?
Firas Zahabi's brother, I do believe. I'm being
It
serious. I
is.
really think they are, yeah.
Yes, that's what I saw as well. Um, this is a tough one, right? Because Aldo is just a legend of the sport. Zahabi, his brother, is a legend of the sport, right? I don't know how much that carries over for. I mean, like Aldo, I hate that he's a 2-1 favorite though, because it's like he's kept losing. He's just getting held up against the cage. Can Zahabi do that though? Is what I want to know, and I don't think he can. I really don't think he can. I think I have to go Aldo here, but maybe you can talk me out of it.
Yeah, this was a very interesting fight when I was watching tape for it. My main problem with this is Zahabi definitely is not impressive. Don't get me wrong. Nothing he does is really a wow factor. Nothing's really exciting. Nothing's really spicy. So here's where I think things can go wrong for Zahabi. He does not check leg kicks. Against Draco Rodriguez, he was getting his calves just absolutely destroyed. He ended up winning that fight, but it's very concerning to see that he just did not check those leg kicks because Jose Aldo is a prolific leg kicker. So if he can get that going, that's definitely going to spell disaster for Zahabi. But honestly, that's really it for me because the positives for Zahabi are late career Aldo right now after the Connor fight and everything. He went on a tear for a little bit, right? Like he beat Jeremy Stevens. Who else did he beat? I'll look it up. But what I'm getting at is Jose Aldo has been able to have a successful, for lack of a better word, like second half career, right? You can almost kind of like define his time in MMA in two segments, right? Pre Conor McGregor, when he was, unbeaten for what, a decade, just like that 145-pound just goat and everything, all
Mm-hmm.
the way from, WEC 2008 and the Pancrase in 2007, but all the way from those years up to 2015, right? Legendary streak, right? Probably never see that in the division again. 25
Right,
and 1 when he finally ended up losing to Connor, right? And that streak
right,
finally was broken. Just insane. And then after that, post Connor, right? Beat Frankie Edgar, lost to Max Holloway twice. And then once he lost to Max Holloway twice and lost the belt again, everybody was like, all right, he's dead, right? He's dead. Well, beat Jeremy Stevens, beat Moicano, went on a 3-fight skid against Volkanovski, Marlon Moraes, and Peter Yan. Once again, oh, he's dead, he's dead. Another 3-fight streak, Marlon Vera, Pedro Munoz, Rob Font. Then lost to Devishvili, beat Jonathan Martinez, lost to Mario Batista, right? So he's really had two different careers. And for how much mileage he has, for how old he is for the division and everything, because 38 is very old for those smaller divisions that rely so much on being fast twitch and a little bit more athletic, a little bit more quick, speedy, those type of things that tend to not get better with age. He really has managed to do quite well for himself even this late in the game. But here's my biggest issue. After that kind of around like the Marlon Vera, after that 3-fight skid to Volk, Marlon Moraes, and Peter Yan, around the Marlon Vera, Pedro Munoz fights, he reminds me now at this stage of his career of like Yo Romero in terms of the inactivity, right? Like against Rob Font, it's kind of shocking. Like when I was watching the highlights of that fight, it's kind of insane to me that he managed to win because he was just getting outstruck in a massive way by Rob Font. He just kind of takes that Yole approach where he just like, maybe it was because he knew it was a 5-round fight. And this is my biggest concern for this fight. This isn't a 5-round fight. This is a 3-round fight. And he
right.
just has that Yo Romero approach of he just kind of stands there and every now and then you get activity. And every now and then you'll get activity. But he lets fights slip away from him when they're not 5-round fights, because in that Rob Font fight, he would have lost if it was a 3-round fight. I know I'm playing the whole, well, if the dog didn't stop to take a shit, it would have caught the rabbit. He was handily losing if that was a 3-round fight, and he would have needed a finish in round 3 that he didn't get because he takes time off. He coast. Maybe he was just doing that because he knew it was 5 rounds, but I am just very worried that he's just so inactive. And as far as like being held up against the cage and just letting rounds pass you by, he still has prolific takedown defense. He's still very hard to get taken down in open mat space, but he also can just be held up against the wall, right? The meta in MMA has kind of transitioned from open mat takedowns to that hold you up against the wall. And even if I can't take you down when I drop down for a single or a double, I'm perfectly content to just wall install like, Belal Muhammad will be talking about later, and just rack up points and rack up control time, and the judges think I'm winning. And I just don't like the idea of for me to put my money on Aldo to win, especially at this big of a favorite, relies on a lot of things. I do not want to put my eggs in that basket. It relies on a ref who's going to want to break up wall install, which is very rare to get a ref that wants action. And it's also going to rely on judges who are going to want to not give points to wall install. You're not going to get that either, right? So it's just relying on the two wildest X factors in MMA that very rarely happen. A referee actually breaking up and resetting for lack of action, and referees actually punishing the Torres Finney's of the world. Because I easily see a world where, from the highlights, or should I say lowlights again, of Aiemann Zahabi just holding people up against the cage like he did up against Draco Rodriguez, he might not be able to take Aldo down, but he definitely can just clinch up against the cage and just get some control time, right? And I just definitely see a world where he basically Torres Finney's Aldo. I think this is going to be an extremely boring fight due to Aldo's inactivity, due to how he just waits like Romero to just do a random explosive movement. But he just does too much feinting now. He just really just coast. He's almost like Jorge Masvidal, that he just coasts and loses controversial split decisions and everything. And I just think that, it's going to be a little mix of the Divishvili fight, except not getting taken down, just getting held up against the fence. I think he'll pitter-patter just enough to keep it active on striking, and I think he just easily coasts to a 3-round decision, and everybody's just left angry.
So you're going with Zahabi?
Yeah, I'm going Zahabi. I don't think you're probably going to get a decision from him at very good odds. Let me double check that. But I damn sure don't. I just think it's going to be boring. I think it's going to be one of the worst fights on the card, because you're already getting Zahabi at a plus 170. Aldo's at a minus 205. And this is really nice because 75% of the bets are on Aldo. So Vegas isn't going to have a problem with paying out on Zahabi because only 25% of bets are on Zahabi. So that's a sneaky pick right there that not a lot of people have on their radar. And I think a lot of people are rolling with Aldo just because he's the name. And I get it. I love Jose. I think he's the GOAT of 145, right? I think he's a legend, all that. But I don't see it at this stage of his career. And I can get Zahabi at decision by plus 250. That's insane to me. That is just absolutely nuts. So actually, I don't know how I'm going to end up doing this. I might come back to this later. But, I mean, for now, I just like him at money at plus 170. Yeah. But it's insane you're getting the dude at a plus 250 decision. That feels like free money. I don't want to get too cocky now because now I'm getting scared. But, I mean, seriously, how are they letting you do this?
Bobby, you talked me off of Aldo. And we don't usually do that very often where we switch our picks, but I mean, I think you're right. I wasn't really thinking about how little activity Aldo has now. It's like, it's one thing to be like, oh, well, can he be held up against the fence? It's like, well, what if he doesn't? He's just going to stand there for a lot of it. So that was a good point. So you turned me. I will be on the Zahabi money line with you. Take this fourth fight away, man.
So the fourth fight that we have Valentina Shevchenko. Valentina Shevchenko is going up against everybody's favorite person in the world. And everybody's favorite person in the world, you might ask yourself, who could that possibly be? Well, it's Manon Fiorot, or at least France's favorite fighter, right? But no, seriously, Shevchenko versus Manon Fiorot, another interesting fight with interesting odds, right? I
Yeah.
took some really detailed notes on this. Thank me for my
Wow.
cervix, because this is going to be definitely some intensive note taking here. I watched over an hour a piece of highlights on these two women, so I think I deserve a
Oh,
Purple Heart for that, because, dear
yeah.
God, it was absolutely fucking terrible. Uh, what do I like about Manon Fiorot? Just like Natalia Silva, very good dexterity, right? I have listed she will feint a jab to land a head kick and gets a finish that way. It's very nice. I really like her use of side kicks and oblique kicks. She starts to get the opponent guessing. Is she going to side kick me? Is she going to oblique kick me? They start to kind of reach for the kick, right? They start to kind of shield the kick, and then she goes up high, and then she gets finishes because she just swarms them after that, right? So she's gotten a few finishes that way. My biggest concern is she can get sloppy with that side kick when she's in close range. I'm worried that she could be spinning after throwing that side kick and exposing her back, and Valentina can take her down when her back's exposed from throwing that side kick, because she just gets so careless and so close with that side kick. Uh, my other thing is, I asked myself if Valentina can calf kick her, because she seems susceptible to calf kicks. If she can start to chew up the legs and limit her mobility, she doesn't have to worry about Manon pressuring her as much. She seems to struggle with mobile fighters, right? Like Rose had her on the back foot a lot. And I think Valentina is very similar to Rose in that they're both mobile fighters. They both like to move around a lot, right? Like Rose kind of has that karate kind of background, that karate boxing background that she takes. Valentina was started off in like Muay Thai championships, very decorated Muay Thai fighter before transitioning to MMA. So she definitely knows how to manipulate distance, knows how to, stay off that center line, kind of take angles to not be backed up against the fence, that type of thing. And it seems like Manon kind of really struggles with that, right? Like she does her best work when she's able to pressure you and kind of chase you and get you up against the fence and start to kind of, fake you out with those kicks. And then she lands one up higher, not expecting that type of thing. Rose really had her just kind of chasing, right? Like Rose was the one who was pressuring her, and she was having to be on the defensive, and she looked very uncomfortable when she was the one being pressured. She looked like she just never really got comfortable at that point. So Valentina, what's her kind of keys to success? She's going to have to calf kick like she did against Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Joanna Jędrzejczyk's a very skilled striker, also started off in Muay Thai champion before transitioning to MMA. Fiorot has the power. She has like the killer instinct, right? She has the edge, but she's not necessarily the best technical striker. And like I said, if you put her on the back foot, she's not nearly as good as when she's pressuring you. Valentina's used to 5-round fights. Manon Fiorot is not, right? So Valentina is the former champion. All championship fights are 5-round fights. So Valentina knows how to manage the distance. She knows how to manage her pace. She knows how to control herself. She knows, hey, I might lose this round or whatever, but these are the rounds that I have to stay up on to be able to win. So it's like that vet edge that Manon just does not have, right? So this will be Manon Fiorot. I believe it'd be her first 5-round fight. And if it is, that's a huge thing right there, right? That's huge when you're entering your first 5-round fight and you're kind of not used to it, because it's one thing to be able to do it in training, right? It's one thing to kind of pace yourself over 5 rounds in training when you're sparring and everything. I get that, but it's an entirely different thing when you're actually in there and you're actually with a real live opponent. It kind of all goes out the window, especially if she's the one getting pressured. So, in this 5-round title fight, Valentina definitely has the edge. She's so used to it. This is all she's done for years now since she's had the belt. I just think she's way too mobile. She's too patient. She always just does enough to win. It might be boring. It might look disgusting. And she crushes the cans. But once she gets a little bit of a more difficult opponent, a la Alexa Grasso, it can look a little disgusting. It can look a little boring. But point blank, the period point is she always just does enough to win. And that is just something you can't teach. And that's something that I think is just going to frustrate Manon. I just think that she has the power, she has the strength, but I just don't think she's refined enough technique-wise. I just don't think she has that vet edge, and I just don't think she's used to a 5-round fight. I think in the future she could definitely be champ of this division, but I think at least as of right now, her first crack at the belt, I think it's not going to end too well for her. What do you think?
Pretty much exactly along the same lines as you, Bobby. Shevchenko looked real good against Grasso. And Grasso is like one of the top pound-for-pound women, if not the top pound-for-pound woman fighter for a while. And I'm looking at this fight, I'm like, Shevchenko made Grasso look bad. But once again, I got to give Fiorot credit because I thought that she was going to get past, I believe it was Blanchfield, that we broke down. And then she was able to get past that wrestler. Is she going to be able to get past Shevchenko? I don't think so. I think a lot of the same stuff you are. My biggest fear, and I want to know your thoughts on this too. Looking at the money, 74% of the money is on Shevchenko, and she's still at underdog odds. So she's a public underdog. Also, 5% sharp money coming in on Fiorot. So she's got 26% of the bet, 24% of the bets. Sorry. I keep getting her and Zahabi mixed up. 26% of the bets, 31% of the money.
That's a little bit concerning, but I mean, you're only getting Shevchenko at plus 110. It's not like they'd have to pay out some ridiculous amount for
That's
you.
fair.
Minus 130, right? So if she was a bigger dog, this would start to get a little bit more concerning. My biggest worry is I wonder if Manon does try to grapple, if that strength edge that I feel she has, because this isn't something I can measure. I mean, I'd love to roll with Manon and everything, but like, I don't know for a fact, if like there is a strength advantage there. I wonder if that would result in like her being able to do some crazy sub or just kind of, it'd have to be a sub because I don't think she could do it over 5 rounds, right? Like, best case scenario, she steals around like early, maybe first, second, third. But after that, I just feel like it's going to be exhausting, right? Because you have to hold that position. And I know it's easier when you're on top to hold the position as opposed to the person on bottom has to try to expend a lot of energy to get up or scramble or whatever. But I just think even if she gets that position, I don't think she would be able to hold it against Shevchenko. Like, I don't think she'd be able to do it long enough and often enough throughout the fight to be able to steal the whole fight. She might get a round or two, but I just think at some point Shevchenko would just get out. And then from there, she's just too mobile. That's the biggest thing is like, she's just so hard to even get in that position in the first place. Like, the way Grasso was able to choke her out was she just didn't have a sense of urgency when she threw a kick and her back was exposed, like I think's going to happen to Manon, coincidentally enough. I think, if anything, that's going to happen to Manon, not to Shevchenko again. I think Shevchenko learned from exposing her back and it getting taken from a wayward kick. But Manon, so far, at least from what I've seen, hasn't learned from a situation like that. So that's my biggest concern, but I just don't think it's that big of a deal.
Okay. Well, then we're both rolling with Shevchenko then. A big underdog card. Let's talk about this final fight. That is Belal Muhammad versus Jack Della Maddalena. Oh boy, it's going to be hard not to be taking even more dogs here, right? I mean, Belal Muhammad, it's so funny to me that isn't like his nickname, like remember the name? Belal, remember the name Muhammad? And he's like the most forgettable guy in the UFC, the most forgettable champion. Like, I've seen so many YouTube shorts and TikToks of people, and they're like, even UFC fighters, and they're like, okay, name like all the champions, and they'll name them all, and they'll be like, oh, I forgot who's the what. winner of that weight class, and they can't remember. Like, oh, Belal. Like, just so the security guard stopping him when he's trying to get to the cage. Like, the meme of Belal Muhammad, it just keeps giving. Both guys 5-0. Jack Della Maddalena is the younger guy. There's not really a big reach advantage here. Muhammad is going to be the better wrestler. JDM's going to be the better striker. That's just the way these guys' careers have played out. Belal just wants to hold you against the wall. Can he do it to Jack? I believe, wasn't Jack fighting, was it Gilbert Burns? And we were kind of worried about how he'd do. And he ended up coming out. Yeah, he ended up coming out pretty good. It's so hard. It's so hard because, like you and me, we don't believe, if you're new to this show, me and Bobby don't believe that holding a guy up against the wall for 25 minutes says that you want to fight. That's not anything. You shouldn't get any points for that. That's horrible.
Right.
Torrance Finney winning that fight, holding what's his nuts up against the fence. That was not a winning fight. So Belal, do I think he's going to get a finish? Absolutely not. Do I think he could get a very, very, very boring decision win? I think it's highly likely, but I think just for the purpose of this, I'm going to go JDM just on the money line. You know what? Get it done anyway. And if it ends up being just Muhammad holding him up against the wall the entire time, then, I'd rather have my money on the plus 160 entertaining guy than Belal. What do you think, Bobby?
We're talking about wrestling, right?
Wrestling.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll rest my balls on your forehead, yeah. That's what McGregor told Chad Mendez. It's what JDM's going to tell Belal. I'm from Chicago, Muhammad. That's what he's going to tell him.
Is Chicago in Palestine?
Chicago is in Rome now because they just got their first pope.
Hey, yeah, you're right.
You go.
Shout out.
Yeah. But no, this is interesting because don't get me wrong. I'm the type of person, if you don't know me on this show, maybe you're a first-time listener or whatever, I can perfectly acknowledge at this stage in my life that I might not like a fighter. I might not like a fighter as a fighter, but I can respect it, right? And that's how I feel about Belal Muhammad. Like, I absolutely hate how boring he is. He really is just so forgettable.
Yeah.
And he's just honestly atrocious. But I respect that he wins, right? I respect that works for him. I have to give credit where it's due. He's clearly a champion for a reason. Blah, 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 blah. All those things you people want me to say. Now I'm going to say what I want to say. Now I'm going to say that Jack Della Maddalena is going to spark him cold.
Oh!
And why is he going to spark this man cold? Because he's been trained with Craig Jones. If you don't know who Craig Jones is, you need to educate yourself. There's a real black woman speaking right now, all right? You need to educate yourself because Craig Jones and what he's doing with that jiu-jitsu team of his that he has is absolutely incredible. I'm talking about that octopus guard that Jack Della Maddalena was playing against Gilbert Burns at one point, right? I'm talking about all that nice scrambling he was doing early on in his career, right? I watched a video. I used to get stoned and watch a lot of Jack Della Maddalena highlights a few years ago, right? Just get blazed at like 11 o'clock at night and start going through his early career and whatnot, speaking with an Australian accent in the middle of my living room and shit. Man was really good. I forget which regional fight it was, but the guy shot a double on him and he like rolled through and came up on top of the guy. He really is not that damn bad when it comes to sprawling, when it comes to defending takedowns and everything. And he's only going to be getting better after training as intensely as he did for guys like Basil Hafitz. I know a lot of people were like, oh, Basil Hafitz, that was such a close fight. That was short notice. Everybody's on steroids. Cue Nate Diaz. Basil Hafez was definitely probably on steroids coming over from a different organization. They probably didn't have time to give the man a P test. So I'm not too worried about that. The Kevin Holland fight, people will always go on about that. Kevin Holland's like middleweight, welterweight, whatever weight class he decides to be at, Michael Johnson, right? On his best days, he can beat everybody. On his worst days, he loses to everybody. And then you're going to be like, well, he was losing that Gilbert Burns fight until he wasn't. That was not a fluke knee. That was actually a well-timed knee. He had it down to a science, and Gilbert got careless. I think that Belal can get careless. I think that he will just take, especially if the takedowns do seem like they're coming a little easy, right? Like worst case scenario, let's say all that training for Gilbert Burns, all that training for Chavez, all that training that he's been doing with Craig Jones, let's say that doesn't pay off. The takedowns are coming a little easy. He can still get complacent, I feel like. Can still get complacent. My biggest concern is once again, Belal probably has the cardio edge. He's probably a little bit more used to these 5-round fights. That is a concern. I'm worried about the long layoff that Della Maddalena had because of his arm and everything, and all the issues with the broken arm and the infections and all that. I get it, but it happens, right? And I just think that if he can go back to what he was doing kind of early in his career when he was being challenged, because that's what guys were already wanting to do to him on the regional scene when he was coming up before the UFC, right? They wanted to take him down. He knew that. That's why he was able to scramble, come up on top instead, avoid the takedown, stuff the takedown. If he can get back to those roots, use the things that he's been learning from Craig Jones and everything, I think he's got a real chance. Plus, there's also the over 35 curse. I can't really explain the specifics of it, but I'm sure a lot of you diehard fans know about the over 35 curse for like 170 and below. It is like Belal Muhammad's 36. Jack Della is 28. That's starting to be pretty significant now, right? Belal
Right.
has more of the wear and tear, right? Somebody said something about his foot injury that he's had recently. So we don't get better with time. We're not tobacco and we're not wine. And at 36, this is one of those weight classes where it's starting to matter. This isn't middleweight, light heavyweight, and heavyweight where you can get away with being in your late 30s and still be competitive. Welterweight has that over 35 curse. I believe it affected Usman, Masvidal, a few other people. If you know, you know. I think Jack Della Maddalena can do it. I would love to see a situation where he comes out and what if he just Masvidal's Belal? Can you imagine the
Yeah.
salt?
Oh
Apparently,
my
people are
God.
upset now because Ian Gary's kid, Ian Gary, knows what he's doing, trying to give Jack Della Maddalena peanut M&Ms when the man's cutting weight, knowing that's his favorite candy, but he hides behind his kid, having his kid walk up to JDM and give him peanut M&Ms when he's starving during a weight cut, and everybody's suddenly upset because JDM said that's not his kid. You guys say
Right.
that shit all the time on Twitter, and now
Dude.
suddenly we're losing fans for JDM because, dude, yeah, go lose some fans, JDM. Wow, dude, only I can make cuck jokes about Ian Gary, dude. Like, get the hell out of here, dude. Get the hell out of here. I definitely can see a world where Bilal's just like I gave him the old Chicago footlong and just held him there up against the cage. And once again, like we talked about with these previous fights, I don't like relying on the ref to actually do their job because they tell you, don't make me do my job. And I don't like relying on the judges to actually have eyeballs and like actually have good scoring criteria. But this is just too good. And actually, it's getting a little bit closer, and I don't like that because right now JDM's plus 160, Bilal's minus 192. But hey, 75% of bets are on Belal, which makes me feel pretty good. Only 25% are on JDM. And you know what? It's actually kind of crazy. I'm not even getting KO TKO at that great of odds. It's only a plus 300, but
Oh
we'll
wow.
see if I make that my haymaker or not. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree 100%, man. 25% of the bets and 34% of the money. So we're seeing almost a 10% sharp swing in money there. So I'm with you, Jack Della Maddalena. Give me him on the money line. Haymaker, Bobby. What do you think? We got a couple we could play with today.
Yeah, let's go back through right quick what we've talked about. JDM KO definitely is tantalizing there. Man, I just can't believe Chicago's got one of their champions and a pope. They got the most
Shout out.
exciting champion in the UFC, dude.
Yeah,
Chicago's winning right now.
Zahabi decision was plus 250.
Yeah, that's pretty tantalizing. And I think that might actually happen. I think I'm gonna go. What was I getting for Shevchenko here? There's some good odds on Shevchenko, too. What if over 5 rounds Valentina KO TKOs her? That's plus 900. That's tantalizing.
Possible.
Why don't we do 2? This is a special episode, and people don't have anything to look forward to on this card, and it's going to sell like dog shit. So I'll give you 2. I'll say, how many subs does Valentina have? Because that's plus 800. So, man, I'm just full of surprises today.
Do you want to parlay it, or are you going to give them out 2 single?
What would it? Yeah, I don't like to try. I like 2 singles more. Kind of doubles the chances, you know. I don't want to get too crazy now. I'm just a little guy. I don't want to get too crazy now. I'm just a little fella. She's got more KO TKOs, which I figured.
Okay. So what do you
think? I'll go Shevchenko KO TKO at plus 900, and that is a Zahabi decision at about plus 250.
Okay.
I like those quite a bit.
And Zahabi by decision. All right. And straight from Bobby's mouth, he said, parlay that. It gets you plus 3,400.
Hey, if you want to parlay, I certainly ain't sneezing at it. That'd be freaking crazy, man. Can you imagine? Are we live now? Can you imagine if that happened, dude?
Guys, that's going to do it for us here. Yeah, I need to start posting some of these parlays. I gave out like a plus 8,000 parlay last week. Didn't hit, but could you imagine? We need to start throwing some of these out there just for people to laugh at if nothing else. But thank you guys for watching. We'll be back for the next card. Peace, guys.
Peace.